What if the future of tech isn't just about building faster tools, but about reclaiming sovereignty, embedding trust, and making our digital systems feel as meaningful as our oldest stories? In this video, I'm breaking down the real patterns shaping tech right now, from AI agent infrastructure to privacy-first design, collective sensing, and why myth matters more than ever. If you want to know where conscious technology is actually headed and how you can build stacks that serve both people and purpose, this is for you. All right. So, what's up, everybody? This is George C.O.C. Samuels, and aka the Digital Wayfinder. And today I'm going to be taking you through my week's worth of signals for you to take notice of how these things may actually help you in terms of aligning yourself with all the changes that are occurring. So many of the things that come to me, especially from those who are looking to work with me, often involve either asking, what's the right tool for me to use for this scenario, or how do I just make better decisions around the tools I'm supposed to use? So what I've done is I've actually started using Diabrowser AI. And if you want a link to that, just check the comments below for a linked Diabrowser. And one of the things I really like about it is that you can essentially use AI to engage with your own browsing history. And I'm surprised that this does not exist yet for even Google Chrome. They've had our data for so long, and all Diabrowser is doing is kind of enabling AI chat on the very information that we're feeding and have been feeding for a very long time, right? And so what I've done is I've asked Diabrowser to go through my browsing history for the last 7 days and find any patterns or themes across the areas that I've been looking at in terms of AI and tech in general. And over here, you'll see that these are the things or the areas that it's come up with. So I'm going to be taking you through stack sovereignty and why it's the battleground right now, agentic AI and how it's decoupling into services, multimodal creativity with baked-in provenance, privacy first near telepathic interfaces, sensing the field, and creator ops as applies to AI. Oh, and we have myth text synthesis as a design language. Okay, so let me first take you through stack sovereignty and why it is a battleground. Now, if you look here on the right, you'll see this LinkedIn post. I thought this was super fascinating because they were talking about TikTok and how it got quote unquote dismembered in broad daylight. Essentially, TikTok had to sell its US arm to the US government. And as you can see here, for $35 to $40 billion. ByteDance, which is the original Chinese company, built TikTok from $0 to $400 billion in valuation. They're keeping 20% of the $40 billion US entity. And so that's $8 billion for what their fastest growing international asset is. Now, it's super fascinating. You see, actually, if you look up Oracle, they've been popping up a lot lately because they are essentially trying to align with Trump and the US government around the future of tech and AI. Okay, so all these companies, all the big boys in tech, are trying to align themselves with Trump and the future. And so you can see here regulatory gunpoint prices. And you can see here Microsoft bought LinkedIn for around 8 times the revenue. But TikTok, despite it being so successful, has had to sell at 4 to 5 times the revenue. And I think what was fascinating here from Abdu was this aspect below. The playbook. Wait for regulatory pressure on foreign companies, form a consortium with government blessing, acquire strategic assets at for sale multiples, rebuild the tech stack, look at that tech stack, domestically, and keep the user base intact. Okay, so the US government now has a board seat. Oracle keeps the cloud contract. The algorithm gets rebuilt by American engineers. Okay, now do you see that bit here? The algorithm gets rebuilt by American engineers. This is highlighting why culture matters. Essentially, what happens for countries when they do not mind their culture gets influenced for them, okay, and designed. And if you don't think that this is a thing or an issue, think again. And this is the reason why I have been so engaged in the intersection of community, culture, and tech throughout most of my career, and why I'm looking at bringing those 3 areas together more and providing a visual language for that. And this is how conscious stack design actually came to be. And again, if you want to learn more about some of these things, I'll put links in the comments below. So the rebuilding the tech stack domestically means that they want to build the algorithm in a way that aligns with US interest, okay? Because this is all part of soft power. And if you think about soft power geopolitically, democracy and spreading democracy is a form of soft power that the United States has advocated for many decades. And that's how they kind of make their way into other countries, right? So you have hard power, which includes military, those sort of things, but soft power, which is also influenced by tech. And so here, 170 million Americans still doom scrolling, lessons for founders. The mistake wasn't building TikTok, it was letting it become indispensable to American culture while being Chinese owned. Your biggest exit risk isn't competition or market dynamic, it's becoming too successful in the wrong geography, okay? And this is why, again, culture matters. And if you don't mind the culture will mind you and can actually cost you money-wise. Now, you see stack sovereignty is a battleground. So it says here, you looked at analyses of the TikTok for sale through a stack lens, control of data centers, algorithms, engineers, and governance over mere brand ownership. That maps to a broader arc. Culture as infrastructure meets geopolitics. In other words, whoever composes and governs the stack shapes cognition, commerce, and narrative. And it's the same intuition that drives conscious stack design, determining the story, okay? So why this matters? Protocols, infrastructure, and standards are upstreams of everything. D becomes about sovereign stack sense-making, okay? And so if you're not familiar with conscious stack design and stack mapping, I'll just give you a brief overview of a tool that I share with members of my lab, where you can essentially use this free tool to first look at what the things are in your day-to-day life or work and break down the sort of categories that make up whatever the goals are that you're looking to achieve or the activities that you engage in day-to-day, and then listing out all the tools that you're actually using. And why do this? One of the things that I've noticed time and time again when people are saying that they do not have, they don't feel like they can keep up with all the tools and technologies coming out, one of the first things I get them to do is actually to map out their stack or stacks if they have multiple. And the reason for this is because as human beings, we require engagement with our senses. And if we cannot see what's going on behind the scenes, we essentially are running off of things in a way that is not hitting our cognition, where we're not aware, we're not cognizant of what's going on. And so the first step is often just mapping this out. And sometimes it can be very manual, or it can feel tedious, but actually it's something that helps process things in your own brain. So by using this tool, you just, outline the categories, put in the tools, and try to put them in order. And then you'll actually see your actual stack here, what you're actually using or prefer. And then through this, you'll start to get an awareness of what is actually being used by you on a day-to-day basis, and then how that actually ties in to larger geopolitical things. And I call this stack thinking. All right. And so with this, the stack, right, where they're talking about number 4, rebuild the tech stack domestically. This is all about dismantling things and figuring out what they want to lay on top of each other in order to be more American, right? So this is where culture and tech become things that have to be consciously designed or rebuilt in order to keep things aligned, relevant. Okay, next up, we got Agentic AI is decoupling into services. So this is Cline. So let me just bring up the appropriate link for Cline. Okay, so here we've got a post from one of the members of Cline, and you can see here, over the past 6 months, we've re-architected Cline's agentic loop into a standalone Cline core. Okay, some of this might seem technical, but I'll do my best to explain it to you guys. This enabled us to decouple from VS Code and build. The focus is to release a true primitive, something close to the metal that pipes cleanly into real-life environments, CI/CD systems, scripts, and automation workflows. Cline, if you're not familiar with Cline, is actually a super useful agent that kind of sits right inside of the vibe coding tools or editors that you may be using, especially if you're an engineer or a software developer. And they've been quite innovative and quite ahead of most of the market when it comes to figuring out the most efficient, clean ways to code using the best that AI has to offer these days. So if you haven't seen them yet, and you are somebody who's getting into the weeds of coding or vibe coding stuff on your own, I highly recommend checking out Cline. Okay. And so this whole aspect right here, becoming modular. Okay. IDE, agnostic services, right? So this means that Cline could start to provide services that doesn't require usage inside of another editor, code editor. Hex is another tool that frames analytics, but all of these different tools that are being highlighted are essentially showing how agentic AI is decoupling itself. Okay, so a lot of these AI agents were kind of inside of other software, but now it's starting to come out. This pitch deck here, I'll put a link to it. This is actually more for founders, and if you want to have your pitch deck analyzed, this is actually a really cool tool. So I might actually show that if we have a link to it right here. Okay, this tool is super cool, and essentially it does a really good job of giving you an accurate score on a pitch deck and what would actually go through versus not. And so I highly recommend this tool if you are seeking to raise at this point in time or in the future. Okay, going back to that tweet, essentially agents are morphing into composable backends. And so this means that when you're building stuff, you want to really start thinking in more modular ways. This sort of thinking has been there for a while in software development, but it's just now being applied to agents more and more. Next up, we've got multimodal creativity with baked-in provenance. So Gemini 2 Flash image, Nano Banana. This has been a lot of fun to play with, and I'll bring up a link so you can see Nano Banana in action. Hopefully we've got a good one here. There we go. All right. So yeah, this particular model from Google has really taken the AI space by storm, because essentially they have created this image generator, which is one, super fast and allows you to edit things just at incredible speeds. And let's have a look at some of these things. Unlock true multimodal creativity. Build applications that combine Gemini's deep image understanding with its powerful generation capabilities. Let your apps tap into the model's world knowledge to perform tasks, rely on a true understanding of what it sees. Right? So if you draw things, it can actually understand what you're drawing. Right? It's not just drawing what you want. You can actually ask it questions about what you're drawing. And I think that's super cool. Right? And this goes into visual language models over large language models, which is simply text-based. Okay? So if you are interested in trying out Nano Banana, you can just go to Google AI Studio. I think the link is aistudio.google.com. And if you have a Google account, you should be able to start playing around with this already. Okay, so essentially with this, what we're seeing here is consistent character control, prompt local edits, and synth ID watermarking. The synth ID watermarking is actually when you create AI generated images, it will put a little watermark in the lower right to show or mark that image as being AI generated. I think this is actually a good thing. So the shift from generative novelty to reliable trackable visual systems. The ethics and audit trails are now going to become embedded. The watermarks, it seems like a really simple solution to related to copyright stuff, and also being able to understand or be aware of something that's AI generated versus not. Okay. Next up, we got privacy first near telepathic interfaces. So this actually has to do with alter ego, and then I'll get into ParaSpeech. So alter ego, if we take a look at this, interact at the speed of thought. This has been the most fascinating announcement that I've seen to date. And the reason for that is because essentially this device, this product, enables digital telepathy. Okay, so I'll see if I can just, if I go here, this founder, he's actually been working on this, I think, for the last 7 years. He showed up in the news a good number of years ago. And he now has a commercially viable product. And you can see he's got a device right over his ear that I think the amazing thing is that their device is able to only read intended thoughts, not all thoughts, right? Which is probably the holy grail in their space. Because you can imagine starting off, right? You're just trying to pick up thoughts from the brain. That's a feat in and of itself. And then translate that into usable text. And at the beginning, they probably would have had all thoughts coming through, but you only want to detect intended thoughts. Okay. Now, there's a lot of ethical discussions, right, happening around this already, and you can understand which those may be. Because if you now have digital telepathy, what happens if that device gets hacked and thoughts start being projected into your own mind through this? This is where I think the advancement of inner tech, which I talk about under conscious stack design or generally with designing conscious technologies, is how to deal with it. Because we can't stop this technology from coming through, but we are going to have to sort of upgrade our inner cognition levels, deal with this level of technology in the future. And this is probably what's going to push for, cyborg, synthetics, those sort of things, right? Half man, half machine. But we will see. So alter ego is a super fascinating piece of hardware. Okay. Now, ParaSpeech, this is something I learned about just this week from Twitter. All right. And what I like about it is that essentially it enables live translation of speech without the need for it to go to cloud, I believe, because it downloads the entire language model for translation straight to your desktop, and you can purchase a one-time lifetime subscription. And so this is a privacy-focused piece of tech, which, again, when it comes to building conscious tech or designing conscious stacks, is going to become more and more of a big deal for a lot of human beings. So the website is actually really great as well, because it also shows you directly how much money you can save. And the founder, I think, has done a great job of incentivizing people, because essentially it's like he says, if you share this on your social media channels, then he'll give you a lifetime subscription for free. And yeah, again, great incentive, right? But it's ultra fast, lightweight, fully offline, and you can buy and own. And I think this fully offline buy and own is going to become increasingly popular. Tech enthusiasts, people who just work online in general, right? So this is ParaSpeech, highly recommended. If you have any questions about it, let me know. Okay, now we go down to sensing the field, number 5. I think that's it. Yeah. So CloudFlare radar. Okay, now why is this? Why would you want to know about or care about traffic trends, right? Adoption and usage, these sort of things. The reason for this is because actually, if you're looking at stats, it's super interesting to see some of the correlations between internet outages, solar flares, geophysical activity, etc. And I've been super fascinated by the idea of tools being reflections of our inner states or psyche. And in my world, based on my career, I've seen a correlation between the tools we use, how we interact between tools, and then those, just the choices that are made amongst these tools as part of stacks. And when you take a look at all those things together, they kind of act as mirrors, right, for what's going on inside of us. And so I was actually looking at the CloudFlare radar, which is available for everybody to see, if there can be any connections. And I just found it super interesting to see actually some general stats on usage through CloudFlare in general. So at least for the West, we can see internet service popularity is Google, followed by Facebook still, Apple, Microsoft, Instagram, so on and so forth. YouTube is still up there. TikTok coming up, WhatsApp, and then you got Amazon last. Okay, we look down. So a practical backbone for a digital nervous system, right? So I think as we become an interplanetary species, we're going to be looking at the idea of a digital nervous system and what that looks like, right? There's a lot of data out there, but how to interpret it and make it meaningful is going to become a thing. Next up, creator ops. Okay, so I've been getting into YouTube a lot more lately, and I came across a guy named Ed Lawrence, and he's really big on sort of less videos, but focused, and less worry about likes and engagement, but more sales. And I think this is going to be a big deal for a lot of people who are looking to become creators or who want to essentially be paid to exist, because I think that is going to become a thing. This requires smarter packaging and distribution, not just smarter models. Okay, and so now let's just have a look, right? Like, what's one key takeaway for you from all of this news of the last week? Essentially, design for sovereignty and resonance, not just efficiency. And let me bring up a link, designing for sovereignty and resonance, okay? In this particular video, the reason why I'm showing this to sort of wrap things up is because there are multiple things happening right now in our world that is changing the way that we've done things. And if you have sensed this but not acted on it yet, it's going to be time to act on it either right now or soon. And this is why, even for myself, I have actually started letting go of a lot of things related to my old identity. Old relationships, old wounds, lots of things. And the reason for this is because I sensed all these changes, right, that are happening in our planet are being reflected in the tech space through, various trends, various signals, right? And you see this here. In this summary, the sheer volume of content creation is overwhelming. And this is actually why I talk about the importance of becoming more consciously aware of your stacks and tech choices, because you will not be able to keep up, but you are going to have to start choosing the tools that you want to build on top of or stack, right, knowledge on top of. And traditional strategies are becoming obsolete as AI and changing algorithms prioritize engagement over follower count, making social media more democratic. So the good thing about this is that it is not going to be about how many followers you have. It is going to be about unique content. And this requires you to actually start going within to get more unique life experiences, your own voice and tone that can be used in a way that's hard to replicate. I'm saying hard, but not impossible, because AI can replicate a lot of things, right? It can fake and imitate, but we are going to have to start going within in order to be able to discern or differentiate between the things that are true versus the things that are not. Creators who adapt to these changes can seize significant opportunities. Importance of identifying gaps, and then misinformation must be avoided. Authentic content, right? I know authentic can be overused, but I will use it here. Okay, so the next wave of tech isn't about who can automate the fastest or generate the most content. It's about who can build systems that respect and protect user agency. All right. So remember, I was talking about sort of the private local, like ParaSpeech, the tool that I shared earlier, how you can buy it once, you own it, you can use it on your desktop without needing to connect to the cloud. I think we're going to see a reversion back to those sort of products. Embed provenance and transparency. Actually, platforms like X, and I'll do a separate video on this, but platforms like X is actually increasing transparency all the way down to a code level. So there was actually a tweet that was put out by Elon Musk, I think recently, about X. So the announcement was essentially in November. Oh, breaking, major new X algorithm. By November, the entire X algorithm will be controlled by Grok. And they've also made the open source code. If you have a look here, XAI is finally open sourcing its AI models. Okay. So people get to see what's under the hood. And this is all about the transparency factor. And this is actually why I think Grok may end up becoming a model that people trust more than ChatGPT or Claude. I'll do a separate video on that. Sense and respond to collective signals. So this is another part of developing intertech where you need to be able to actually sense shifts in the digital world. And I'll probably do a separate video on that also. But this is going to become more and more important. Digital sensing. Building systems that are modular and composable. This has to do with AI agent orchestration. And then honoring the myth, story, and heritage. So this is, I think, more about you being able to see the patterns that come through archetypes of mythologies and even your own cultural heritage and weaving that in to your own story, because that's what makes you unique at the end of the day. But there you have it. Hope you've enjoyed this weekly roundup of tech news, essentially all the things that are swirling around in the vast digital ocean. And if you have any questions, ask away in the comments, and I'll do my best to put in the links mentioned from this video so you can check things out yourself. Until next time, remember, through patience and persistence, it will come.